Namaste students, welcome to the biology class. In the previous class, we have discussed about two of the groups under kingdom Protista. So among the 5 groups under kingdom Protista, we have discussed about two of the groups. They are chrysophytes as well as dinoflagellates. So under chrysophytes, we have discussed about diatoms as well as desmids. And under dinoflagellates, we have discussed about organisms like goniolads as well as serration. Okay, and we have noted down the general characteristic features of both these groups. So today we are going to discuss about one more group under kingdom Protista. They are euglenoids. Okay, so euglenoids mainly include euglena and euglena-like unicellular organisms. Euglena and euglena-like unicellular organisms. Because of presence of euglena and euglena-like organisms, these groups are named as euglenoids. Okay, they are named as euglenoids. And euglenoids are mainly found in freshwater, or they are freshwater organisms, and they are mainly found in stagnant water. They are not mostly found in flowing water, they are mainly found in stagnant water. These euglenoids lack cell wall. Okay, they lack cell wall, and in place of cell wall, they have got a layer of protein, or there is a proteinaceous layer instead of cell wall. And this proteinaceous layer found instead of cell wall is known as pellicle. Pellicle, or it is also called periplast. Okay, periplast or pellicle is a proteinaceous layer that surrounds the euglenoids. Okay, so this proteinaceous layer, presence of proteinaceous layer like pellicle or periplast gives flexibility to the cell. It gives flexibility to euglenoids. Okay, euglenoids get flexibility mainly because of presence of pellicle and absence of cell wall. Okay, and generally these euglenoids, they have certain characteristics like animal cell, that is they lack cell wall, and they have got characteristic features like higher plants because they have got chloroplast in them as well as photosynthetic pigments in them. Okay, so euglenoids, their mode of nutrition may be autotrophic or heterotrophic. So if they are autotrophic, they may be photosynthetic. Why they are photosynthetic? Because they have got organelles like chloroplast. They have organelles like chloroplast, and chloroplasts are ribbon-like structures. Okay, they are ribbon-like structures, and these chloroplasts have got pigments like chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B as well as carotenoids. Okay, so euglenoids may undergo photosynthesis in the availability of light or in presence of light because of presence of chloroplast. Because of presence of chloroplast, and chloroplast has certain photosynthetic pigments like chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B as well as carotenoids. Okay, and whenever light is deprived or whenever light is not available to euglenoid, they can undergo heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Okay, so especially during heterotrophic mode of nutrition, they undergo holozoic nutrition, a mode of nutrition known as holozoic. Okay, so during holozoic mode of nutrition, these euglenoids just engulf the food particles, or they engulf the smaller organisms. So this mode of nutrition is known as holozoic. They just engulf or ingest smaller food particles or smaller organisms and get digested the food particles that they are having ingested. So such a mode of nutrition is known as holozoic. So depending upon the availability of light or not, they can undergo photosynthesis or they can undergo heterotrophic or holozoic mode of nutrition. So because of this particular property of euglenoids, that is they can undergo both photosynthesis or as well as they can undergo holozoic or heterotrophic mode of nutrition, the type of nutrition the euglenoids usually undergo is mixotrophic. Mixotrophic. So mixotrophic means mixotrophic nutrition. So mixotrophic nutrition indicates that they can undergo both photosynthesis as well as heterotrophic mode of nutrition based on availability of light. In presence of light, they undergo photosynthesis. In absence of light or whenever the light is not available to them, they can undergo heterotrophic mode of nutrition. So that particular mode of nutrition where the organisms can undergo photosynthesis or heterotrophic mode of nutrition or holozoid, it is called as mixotrophic nutrition, mode of nutrition. Okay. Next, euglenoids are generally motile because of presence of flagella. Okay. So generally they have got two flagella, and among them one of the flagella is very long and other flagella is very short. Okay. So because of the presence of flagella, they are able to move. Okay, they are able to move. So euglenoids are motile because of presence of flagella, and they are flexible because of presence of a proteinaceous layer instead of cell wall, that is known as pellicle. Okay, so this makes the euglenoids to change the shape of the cell. Next, coming to the food stored in case of euglenoids. Food is generally stored in case of euglenoids in the form of paramylum. Food stored is called paramylum. So this paramylum is a type of carbohydrate. Okay, paramylum is a type of carbohydrate. Then mode of nutrition. Mode of nutrition in case of euglenoids are generally asexual mode of reproduction. So during asexual mode of reproduction, they usually undergo binary fission. Okay, binary fission, and the type of binary fission they undergo is longitudinal. So you know that this is the diagram of euglena. So in case of euglena or in any of the euglenoids, usually the type of binary fission that undergoes is longitudinal. So cell mainly splits longitudinally to form two daughter cells. Okay, cell splits longitudinally to form two daughter cells. So that type of binary fission is known as longitudinal binary fission. Okay, during unfavorable condition, euglenoids form cyst. During unfavorable condition, euglenoids form cyst. During favorable condition, they undergo mode of reproduction by longitudinal binary fission. Okay, but during unfavorable condition, they form cyst and they remain in the cyst form until the favorable condition returns. After the favorable condition returns, then they undergo division to form daughter cells, or new cells are formed from these cysts. Okay, this is the mode of reproduction in case of euglenoids. Okay, so this is the diagram of euglena. Okay, a cell of euglena, which is a member of euglenoid. You can observe here in the diagram, the cell has got flagella and the cell has got stigma. You can observe here there is a structure known as stigma. Stigma is also known as eye spot. Okay, so it is a receptor to sunlight. So it is a photoreceptor called stigma. So based on the availability of light, they can detect the light and then they can move to the region where light is available, and then because of presence of chloroplast in them, ribbon-like chloroplast in them, they can undergo photosynthesis. And inside these chloroplasts, there are certain pigments known as chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, as well as carotenoids. So with the help of these pigments, they undergo photosynthesis and synthesize food. And the food that is synthesized is stored in the form of paramylum, and that is a form of carbohydrate. Okay, and these cells of euglena have got a prominent nucleus having nucleolus in it, and they also have contractile vacuoles. And you know that contractile vacuoles mainly help in osmoregulation. Contractile vacuoles mainly help in osmoregulation. Okay. So these are the features of euglena or characteristic features of euglena. Okay, and these are the characteristic features of euglena or euglena-like organisms. So we name the group as euglenoids. So next, let us discuss about one more group under Protista. They are slime molds. Let us discuss about the characteristic features of slime molds. Slime molds have the characteristic feature both similar to animals as well as fungus. Okay. So earlier the biologists have named them as fungus animals. But the new biologists, the modern biologists, they usually have considered them as a separate group, that is slime molds, and they have been included them under kingdom Protista. And the modern biologists usually call them as protistan fungi. Protistan fungi. Protistan fungi, because they have got the characteristic feature almost similar to fungi. So they call them as protistan fungi, and generally they are called as slime molds. These slime molds, they do not have chlorophyll, so they do not undergo autotrophic mode of nutrition. Their mode of nutrition is saprophytic. Saprophytic mode of nutrition is organisms that depend on dead and decaying matter for their nutrition. So slime molds are saprophytic protistans. They do not have chlorophyll, and slime molds are surrounded by only plasma membrane. They do not have cell wall. Only in particular stages, some stages of their life cycle, they may be having cell wall, but generally they do not have cell wall, and they are mainly covered by plasma membrane. And at one particular stage of the life cycle, they have got irregular shape or amoeboid structure. Okay, at one particular stage of their life cycle, they have got amoeboid structure. And these slime molds, they live among decaying vegetation. Usually they are found in decaying vegetation, and they usually move along with the decaying twigs, plant twigs as well as leaves. And slowly they go on engulfing the organic matter present in twigs as well as in the leaves. Okay, they engulf the organic matter. They engulf organic matter. What do you mean by engulfing? Engulfing is eating. They engulf organic matter of decaying twigs as well as leaves. So they are saprophytic in their nutrition. And during favorable condition, these slime molds, they form aggregation, or they group together to form a structure known as plasmodium. During favorable condition, the slime molds aggregate or group together, and this aggregation is known as plasmodium. But during unfavorable condition, okay, during unfavorable condition, this plasmodium differentiates into fruiting bodies. Plasmodium differentiates into fruiting bodies. During favorable condition, they aggregate to form plasmodium. During unfavorable condition, this plasmodium differentiates and forms fruiting bodies. So these fruiting bodies bears certain structures inside which there are spores. Okay, they are spore bearing structures or sporangium. They form sporangium or spore bearing structures. Spore bearing structures. We call them as fruiting bodies. Fruiting bodies. So inside these fruiting bodies, sporangium, or in the fruiting bodies, sporangium will be formed. Sporangium is a sac-like or bag-like structure within which there are many spores. Okay. So these fruiting bodies or sporangium have large number of spores, and the spores are released or they are dispersed to air. Spores are dispersed to air. Okay. From the fruiting bodies, large number of spores are dispersed to air. And these spores, once they are dispersed, they continue their life cycle. Okay. Spores generally continue their life cycle once they are dispersed to air. And you have to remember that the spores are the structures that have cell wall. In rest of the stages there is no cell wall for slime molds, but spores have cell wall. Spores are the structure which have cell wall. Okay? And these spores, since they have got cell wall, they have cell wall around the spores, they can resist any unfavorable conditions. So these spores, since they have got cell wall, they can resist any adverse conditions or extreme conditions. They can resist adverse conditions. Adverse conditions or very extreme conditions. Suppose if it is high temperature or there is less availability of water or dehydrating condition, they can resist because they have got a thick cell wall around the spores. Okay, so because of presence of cell wall, they can resist adverse conditions or extreme conditions. So once the favorable condition returns, then again they continue their life cycle. Okay, so these are the characteristic features of slime molds. And there are various slime molds. In slime molds, there are different types of slime molds. They may be acellular or cellular slime molds. Generally, there are two kinds of slime molds. They are acellular and cellular slime molds. Okay. Some of the slime molds, examples for slime molds are Physarum, Fuligo, Dictyostelium. Now let us discuss about protozoans. So protozoans are simplest unicellular organisms and they are found to be primitive to animals. Okay, most of them believe that they are the primitive relatives of animals. And these protozoans, the mode of nutrition is heterotrophic. They cannot synthesize their own food. They are heterotrophic. Among them, some of them live as parasites and some of them live as predators on another organism. So they depend on another organisms for their nutrition, either as parasites or as predators. And protozoans, they have got various types of locomotory organs. So based on the type of locomotory organs, you know what is locomotion? Locomotion is movement. So based on the type of locomotory organs they have, the protozoans are divided into four distinct groups. They are amoeboid protozoans, flagellated protozoans, ciliated protozoans and sporozoans. So among these, some group of protozoans have pseudopodia as their locomotory organ, some group of protozoans have cilia as their locomotory organs, and some group of protozoans have flagella as locomotory organ, and there are certain group of protozoans that do not have any of these locomotory organs. Okay, they live as parasites on another organisms or within other organisms. So first we note down the basic characteristic features of amoeboid protozoans. So amoeboid protozoans, they usually are found in freshwater habitat or marine habitat, or they are also found on moist soil. Freshwater, seawater or marine or moist soil. And usually these amoeboid protozoans, they capture their prey. They are predators. Predators usually feed on prey. They capture their prey, mainly putting out a false feet, a structure known as false feet, and that is called pseudopodia. Okay. Hope you can remember what type of organisms produce pseudopodia. You have studied in your lower class. False feet or pseudopodia is seen in amoeba. So amoeba is an example for amoeboid protozoan. So how does amoeba capture its prey? Amoeba captures the prey by protruding out the false feet and engulfs the prey. Okay. So such structure is known as pseudopodia. It is also known as false feet. Okay. Pseudopodia or false feet. There are certain marine forms of amoeboid protozoans, and these marine forms have got silica on their surface. They have got silica shell made up of silica on their surface. And there are certain amoeboid protozoans that are parasites. Parasites usually cause certain diseases. They depend on another living organism for their nutrition, and they draw the nutrition from the host cell and cause certain diseases or infection in them. Okay, so some are parasites. For example, Entamoeba histolytica. It is a parasite. So Entamoeba histolytica is a parasite or a parasitic protozoa that causes diseases even in humans. It causes a disease known as amoebiasis. Okay, amoebiasis. Entamoeba histolytica causes a disease called amoebiasis. So these are some of the characteristic features of amoeboid protozoans. So mainly, why do we categorize them as amoeboid protozoans? Because of forming false feet or pseudopodia, we call them as amoeboid protozoans. Okay, next, let us discuss what are flagellated protozoans. So the name itself indicates flagellated. They have flagella. Their locomotory organ is flagella. So these flagellated protozoans, they are free living or they may be found as parasites. And they have flagella. Because of presence of flagella, they are categorized as flagellated protozoans. And these flagellated protozoans, many of them are parasitic forms. And parasitic forms cause diseases. There are various types of flagellated protozoans and they cause various types of infections or diseases. So one such disease is sleeping sickness. You might have heard about a disease called sleeping sickness. So here the parasite enters the body and then it may increase its number in the fluids present in our body. Okay, that is known as sleeping sickness. Okay, we are going to study about these diseases in detail in your class 12 or 2nd PUC. Just remember that sleeping sickness is a disease caused by one of the flagellated protozoa and that is trypanosoma. Okay, trypanosoma. Trypanosoma causes a disease known as sleeping sickness. There are different species of trypanosoma which may cause different types of sleeping sickness. Then one more example for flagellated protozoa is leishmania. So leishmania is a flagellated protozoan that causes a disease known as Kala-Azar. Kala-Azar. It's a type of fever. Kala-Azar. It's a kind of fever. It's also called as dum-dum fever. Okay, Kala-Azar. So these are the characteristic features of flagellated protozoans. So next we move on to ciliated protozoa. So what type of locomotory organs these ciliated protozoans have? Ciliated protozoans have cilia. So they are grouped as ciliated protozoans. The ciliated protozoans are mainly found in aquatic habitat and they have presence of cilia and they have not only one or two cilia, they have got thousands of cilia found around their body. Okay, and they have this ciliated protozoans have got a cavity in their body and that cavity is called gullet. Okay, ciliated protozoans have a cavity in their body called gullet and this cavity opens to outer environment through the cell surface. Okay, cavity opens outside of cell surface and there is coordinated movement of cilia. You know that ciliated protozoans have large number of cilia, thousands of cilia, and all these cilia, there are rows of cilia and these rows of cilia have got coordinated movement. Okay, because of coordinated movement of cilia, it makes water along with the food to be steered into the gullet. Gullet is a cavity. So because of coordinated movement of cilia, water along with the food is steered into the gullet. Okay, in this way they obtain their nutrition. So example for ciliated protozoans, Paramecium, Verticella are some of the examples for ciliated protozoans. So next we move on to sporozoans. Sporozoans are those group of protozoans that do not have any of the locomotory organs. They do not have flagella, cilia or pseudopodia. Okay? And they are commonly endoparasites. Parasites are those that live on the host body or host cells. Endoparasites. In parasites there are two types, ectoparasites and endoparasites. Ectoparasites are those that are found on the surface of the living organisms, whereas endoparasites are those that are found within the body of living organisms. So they enter the body of living organisms and they depend on the nutrition of the host cells. Host cells draw the nutrition from them and cause certain type of infection or disease. Okay. So sporozoans are endoparasites. There are infectious spore-like stages in their life cycle. Infectious spore-like stages found in their life cycles. And these spores, there are different types of spores formed, and some of the spores are highly infectious forms. Okay. So one such example for sporozoan is Plasmodium. You might have heard about species of Plasmodium. Plasmodium is a malarial parasite. It causes a disease known as or infection known as malaria. Okay. So malaria is caused by Plasmodium. There are various species of Plasmodium. The most commonly found species of Plasmodium in India that causes infection or malarial fever is Plasmodium vivax. Plasmodium vivax, that is commonly found in India. Okay. So example, Plasmodium monocystis. They are some of the sporozoans that cause various types of infections. Okay. And this Plasmodium, you know that Plasmodium causes malaria. It's a malarial parasite. So it requires two hosts. One is the human, one of the hosts is human body, the other host is female Anopheles mosquito. Okay. So some stages of their life cycle will be completed within the human body. Some stages of life cycle is completed within the body of female Anopheles mosquito. Okay. So they undergo both asexual and sexual mode of reproduction. So during asexual mode of reproduction, they produce large number of spores, whereas during sexual mode of reproduction, gametes will be formed. These gametes will be fused together and they form. There is fusion of gametes and formation of zygote, and life cycle will be completed. Okay. So life cycle of Plasmodium or some of the sporozoans, they require two hosts. Not all the sporozoans. Some of the sporozoans require two hosts. Especially the Plasmodium requires two hosts, human as well as female Anopheles mosquito. Some stages of life cycle is completed inside the body of mosquito. The rest of the stages of life cycle is completed inside the body of human being. So to complete their life cycle, they require two hosts. So these are some of the groups of protozoans based on the type of locomotory organs they have, and we have noted down the basic characteristic features as well as examples for these groups of protozoans.